Good morning, you guys. Yesterday we read two stories, two fables, The Gnat and the Lion and The Gnat and the Bull, and we recognized the key details and events and used them to create a summary of our story. Today we're going to be moving into how characters reveal themselves through their actions and through their dialogue. And yesterday we discussed the word dialogue and said that it was easy to recognize dialogue by looking for the quotation marks, because we use quotation marks to show when someone is speaking and what their actual words were. And that's very important. And so we're going to be talking, after we identify some of those actions and dialogues, we're going to talk about how getting to know the character helps us to better understand the events in a story. In order to describe the words and actions, I want to refresh your memory on adjectives. So move my head. There we go. Adjectives are words that describe a noun. They give us descriptions. Sometimes it's physical descriptions, red shirt, dirty blonde hair, blue eyes. Sometimes they are words that describe sounds we hear, smells, kind of the five senses. But we're going to be talking about adjectives that describe the gnat and the lion and how they feel, and how those things also help us to understand the characters. So using adjectives to describe our characters more than just on the outside. I don't need to know a lion is furry and he's big and he's ferocious. However, those are great adjectives. We're going to be talking about their character traits. So looking back at a couple parts of our story that really help us to recognize these characters' actions and dialogue are the first three paragraphs of our story. So looking at paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, the story starts us with dialogue. It starts off with the lion and the gnat speaking to each other, and this was very important because, as you notice, this dialogue helps us to understand what the gnat is doing and saying, and how that's provoking the lion and how he feels about it. So if we look at it, back to paragraph 1, it says, "Away with you, vile insect." And I talked with you guys about that word vile. It said a lion angrily to a gnat that buzzed around his head. And I had a connection when I read this the very first time, just thinking about, especially around August and September, we have gnats really bad in North Carolina. And the gnats buzz around us and they fly up our nose and in our eyeballs, and it's so frustrating. So I kind of had a moment where I connected myself to the lion and thought, I know how annoying and frustrating it is to have those gnats buzzing around your head. So it helped me to understand too how he was feeling. But the gnat was not in the least disturbed. So the gnat he wasn't worried about that lion and how he felt. "Do you think," he said spitefully to the lion, "that I am afraid of you because they call you king?" This dialogue gives us so much information already about our two characters. So we're going to talk about that in a minute in a chart. Then we have some actions that take place in paragraph 3. And if you remember yesterday when we read the story, we talked about how a lot of the plot happened in paragraph 3. That was kind of the big chunky middle of our story. And that's when we have the gnat flew at the lion. He's stinging him sharply on his nose. This made the lion mad with rage, and he struck fiercely at the gnat. But the lion only succeeded in tearing himself with his claws. Again and again the gnat stung the lion. The lion was now roaring terribly, at last worn out from their battle and covered with wounds that his own teeth and claws had made. The defeated lion gave up. So some of those actions, again, we have that gnat continuously stinging and kind of instigating and provoking the lion until the lion got angry enough to take his claws and swat at the gnat. How many times have you done that? I've done that so many times I don't have fingers and toes to count. Squishing out. I think you guys saw me do that the other morning during morning meeting. I had a gnat in my office, and I was over here swatting, right? But he was tearing himself with his claws when he would swat. And eventually he was hurting and he was tired, and he gave up. He said, "I quit." So let's look at our chart. Okay, so we're going to talk about the words and dialogue of the gnat. And gnat 1 meaning the gnat from the gnat and the lion, not the gnat and the bull. So we're just looking at the gnat in the story of the gnat and the lion. And we identified some of his words to be, "Do you think that I'm afraid of you because they call you king?" So I want you to think about that and the way that he's saying that. And I think yesterday in our text, if you have your book open, you'll see we kind of wrote that he sounded kind of sassy. It's kind of like, you're my teacher. You think you can tell me what to do, right? We don't want to speak with that tone. So we can hear that sassy tone in his dialogue. And then we look at his actions. What did he do? He said this, and then he was buzzing around the lion's head. He was stinging the lion over and over. He's boasting about his victory. Do you remember that? That wasn't on what we just looked at. But yesterday at the end of the story, I talked about how he was proud and flying around and how there's a difference in being proud and being boastful. And boastful is it's a negative connotation word. It really is not nice. And then he flew into the spider web. So knowing how he spoke, knowing the actions that he did, how can we describe him? What are some ways that we could describe the gnat? Well, in the text it told us he was spiteful. He said it spitefully. And if you're with spite, it's kind of like I don't know, I think if somebody was like kind of being snooty with their nose in the air. He was proud, and I would probably even almost use the word boastful, because to me proud can be a good thing. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to change that word to boastful. I think it represents the way he was acting better. Please spell my word correctly. B-O-A. And careless. He was careless when he flew into that spider web because he was so busy boasting he wasn't paying attention to where he was going. Then we have the lion. What was the dialogue we said the lion said? The lion was angrily, saying these things to the gnat. Away with you, vile insect. Go away. Leave me alone, you disgusting insect. His actions, remember, he began clawing and pawing at the gnat. He was angry. He called the gnat names. He hurt himself attacking the gnat. And then he gave up. What does that tell us about the lion? So we're talking about what he said, the way he acted. What can that tell us about the lion? Well, the lion thinks highly of himself, and he looks down on the gnat. He's kind of like, you vile insect, you disgusting insect. Well, the insect could think the lion was disgusting, right? Maybe you stinky big cat. So he's imagining himself. He feels that he himself is a little bit higher and mighty, and he may have that I'm the king of the jungle attitude. But even though he feels that way about himself, he still gets frustrated. He still gave up. So we know that that's a description of him. As you move forward today, you are going to receive this chart, and it's the same chart, but it's for the gnat and the bull. So we're going to look at the gnat and the bull, their words, the dialogue, the conversation they had, their actions towards each other, and then come up with a description of the character. Again, not looking at the outside appearance, really looking into the kind of character they are. Are they perseverant? Are they annoying? Are they boastful? Are they proud? Those kinds of things, to come up with a chart that will kind of show how the characters revealed themselves through their words and their actions, using some really good 4th grade Leaders in Learning adjectives. So I'm excited to see your thoughts today about that story and how you guys viewed the difference in the characters in the two stories.